I live in a coastal region, and pretty much from the outset of my creative venture, my work somehow finds its way to the coast, from short films to music videos. Now, I won't try to say that there's some secret ingredient to filming by the coast or the beach. The same principles apply to filming near the ocean as to anywhere else. However, there are a couple of factors which may cause trouble that only appear at the coast. Let's take a look.
Further up the coast is Dunraven Bay, home to the ruins of Dunraven Castle.
Unless there are tall waves crashing into the shoreline, sometimes it can be quite boring to film the ocean. It is an endless abyss of nothing, after all. Therefore, to add an element of energy to your framing, I recommend doing two things. First, don't film directly out into the ocean, but film slightly downshore so you're giving your audience two leading lines to look through the frame: the waves and the coast, but keep the ocean within two of the vertical thirds to the left or right. Second, bring your camera down lower to the ground and have the ocean fully within that lower third. You've essentially got a giant reflective surface moving sporadically, and the more of the ocean that you can fill in that lower third of the frame, the more shapes and motion there is moving within the image. Drop that camera lower and the image comes alive. In my previous tutorial on filming in the rain, I noted several different methods that you can employ to keep your camera dry if it isn't weatherproof. Now, if you don't have a weatherproof camera and you're filming on the coast, you might think there's not an inherent issue with getting your camera a little bit wet with the ocean spray, because it's a lot different than consistent rainfall. I'm pushing my luck, boy. However, salt water is very lethal for electronics. Petapixel recently published an article on a rental Fuji camera, I think it was, that just completely got destroyed just by the odd wave splash. So you're gonna have to be careful if you do get any waves. Well, if you get any waves on your camera, you're done for. If you get any ocean spray going onto your camera, make sure you wipe it down with a damp cloth. Now, if you do get it on your filter, just the front filter, unlike rainfall, again, it's not going to be as simple as just wiping it off with a lens cloth, because salt water is going to smudge a little bit differently. So you're going to want to make sure that you have lens spray and a clean lens cloth separate than your usual lens cloth to get rid of that salt water smudging. However, if you find that your filter has become hazy and you didn't initially notice because it wasn't large ocean spray, but just a small misty spray that's hard to identify, you may have a problem when you get back home and review your footage. You'll find a lot of it is hazy, which may not be the apparent style of choice for your shot. Now, before you scrap this, we could look at somewhat fixing it in DaVinci Resolve, and let me show you how. In DaVinci Resolve Studio, there's a tool called Dehaze, where by name it dehazes your footage. Now, to completely be honest with you guys, I guess there's no real tutorial for this. You quite literally just drop the effect on a node and it will do its job. There's a few sliders to increase the color, the contrast, or decrease the amount of haze in the tonal regions. Although there are two principles that we could cover. So the Dehaze tool applies contrast and saturation to a hazy image because they're vacant from an image that has been captured with a misty filter. So you need to grade your image as you would typically, but make sure you leave that saturation and contrast out of your grade. And you're also going to want to apply the Dehaze tool on the final node. Using this effect on your final node allows you to revert the previous nodes and adjust any corrections that may send the Dehaze tool off course. Now, if your coastal location is a beach or just a sandy location, we all know how much sand can just get anywhere and everywhere, even if you've taken the utmost precaution in trying to stay sand free. This is especially true when it comes to camera gear. Now, it's not so much of an issue, I think, with modern lenses, as they have been specifically engineered to keep all the muck out of it, but with older lenses, this is a Nikon 35mm from 1980, especially ones that are constructed from metal, they usually have a larger gap between the focus or the zoom ring, and there's nothing worse than coming back from a sandy location and you turn the focus and it sounds like a pepper grinder. So you don't need anything special or a specialist tool to get the sand out of here. If you're from the UK, Europe, Canada, Australia that have polymer notes, take nothing more than folding a note in half and with the sharp edge put it into the focus ring, and until you get to the grain of sand, and then you can flick out. If you don't have polymer notes, I think printer paper, if you're in the US, might be just as good, but it's not as strong as the polymer notes. When it comes to exposing a daytime seaside shot, your camera may land you in deep water. Okay, that was a pun. If you follow the exposure tools to a T. Most cameras now house zebras, an on-screen tool that displays areas of clipped values. However, it's perfectly natural to find specular highlights on the tips of waves. It's a natural occurrence that we see with our own eyes. It's not because of a lack of dynamic range within the camera. Yet if your camera is telling you that there are areas of clipped values and you expose to correct them, you may find that your shot ends up looking something like this. For a midday shot, it's overly dark, there's too much contrast, the land has fallen into dark shadows, and it just looks overall ugly and unnatural. If you find the water that you are filming has specular highlights, it is completely fine to let them be. Alright, this has been Lewis with Shutterstock Tutorials, and I will catch you guys next time.